All right, good evening. It is Monday, September 16th, 2024. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Argyle ISD Board of Trustees. At this time, we'll determine if a quorum is present.
Leona McDade, present.
Rich McDowell, present.
Leanne Artho, present.
Matt Slayton, present.
And I, Sam Slayton, present. We do have a quorum established. The time is still 5 p.m. and we will adjourn to executive session. Good evening. The time is 6:05 p.m. We have returned from executive session. At this time, we are honored to have the Safety Patrol from Jane Russman Elementary come up and do our pledges. Come on up.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So like Mr. Slayton said, this is our Safety Patrol. This is a great student group on campus. These are all fifth graders, and they are a peer mentor group, and they help us with arrival each day.
Okay.
They help get our younger students to their holding places in the mornings, and we could not get through our mornings without them. So they're going to introduce themselves, give you a few pieces of information about them, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ashaz Ahmed Sheikh. My favorite subject in school is mathematics. And what I love most about JRE is all my teachers. They're really nice. They help me guide a path in my education. And last but not least, JRE is just right for everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. That's great.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My favorite subject is also mathematics, and my favorite thing about and my name is Zachariah Hassan, and my favorite thing about JLE is that all the design and architecture on every floor, and whenever you walk in, there's so much cool architecture.
Excellent. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aaron, and the one thing that I like most about JRE is just how fun it is to see my teachers' smiling faces whenever I walk into the room. My favorite subject is mathematics and social studies.
Awesome.
Good evening.
Good evening. You're good. It's picking you up.
What?
It's
You're
good.
good.
Just keep talking. It's
You're good.
picking you up. You're good.
Good evening. My name is Saiketar Alapati. My favorite subject is social studies. And the one thing I like about JRE is the teachers. They're very nice and help me with my education.
Excellent. Thank you.
My name is Shivane, and my favorite subject is mathematics. And one thing that I love about JRE is everything's well kept and clean.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sahasra, and my favorite subject is social studies. The thing I like about JRE is that all the kids are very nice and they're very polite, and that's why I like JRE.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. Great job, guys.
All right, thank you again to the Safety Patrol fifth graders from JRE. That was great. All right, Mr. Hawksworth, if you'd like to lead us in our opening prayer.
Sure.
Dear Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you for the students. We thank you for letting us see just how engaged they are and hear them talk about their experience at school. Please be with our students, our staff in these times that we live in. Give them peace, give the parents peace of mind. Just help us all make decisions that are in the best interest of the school district. There are plenty of people that need help and need assistance. Let's make sure we make decisions that have a positive impact on everyone. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. We'll move into public forum for tonight. I'm going to read my paragraph. We have one person signed up, so here we go. Y'all bear with me. All right. Please note, board policy requires speakers to sign up in person before the meeting is called to order. During this portion of the meeting, board members will listen to comments, but as the designated spokesperson, only the president may respond to the speaker if needed and refer concerns to the appropriate administrator. Speakers can comment on agenda items, but trustees will not be able to discuss the items until they are before the board during the meeting. Board policy BED local provides the presiding officer the ability to adjust the time allotted per speaker for effective meeting management. Pursuant to that policy, an individual's comments to the board at tonight's meeting shall not exceed 5 minutes. The presiding officer may reduce the allotted time for each individual to speak to no less than 1 minute for effective meeting management. Speakers are not allowed to receive time from other individuals. Tonight, each speaker will receive 5 minutes. Specific complaints about individual district personnel are to be processed through the district's grievance policies as set out in district policies DBA, FNG, and/or GF. Speakers are not permitted to refer to individual students or employees by name during the public comment period. Additionally, if you have a pending grievance that may come before the board in a level 3 hearing, please refrain from addressing the topic of your grievance except through the grievance process. All right. There we go. All right. With David Rubin. Good evening, Mr. Rubin.
Good evening.
Your time will be up here on the board here. Mr. Matthew Slayton will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and the time is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, board members. My name is David Rubin, and I'm a resident at 1416 13th Street in Harvest Community. This evening, however, I'm here representing the Belmont 1 Freshwater District as an elected officer on the board. If you're not familiar with the Belmont districts, we were created by the Order of Denton County Commissioners and overseen by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Our district is empowered, among other things, to purchase, construct, operate, and maintain all works, improvement, and facilities of graveled and paved roads within our district boundaries. These include sidewalks, ramps, and crosswalks. We pay these activities through an annual ad valorem tax, which in 2023 was $1.158 billion in assessed value. This tax base represents almost 3,000 family homes. Belmont 1 includes homes that contribute approximately 70% of their children attending JRE. As such, parents who are active voters have engaged Belmont 1 to take action to support protecting their children from potential traffic dangers now facing our community. The purpose of me standing in front of you today is to ask for your encouragement for the principals involved with the safety of our children to re-engage the district regarding the traffic changes surrounding JRE. We recognize the school is attempting to address safety issues that were not addressed during the initial engineering of the school. While their approach may have addressed concerns on the property, the results are net negative overall to safety surrounding the school and the subsequent residential streets. The results of the revised traffic pattern has made some students and parents less safe. I'd like to share an example that one parent reached out to me where they were involved in being blocked in front of their own driveway by a parked car, no less. The irony of that was that parent had to rush their child to a medical emergency and had to drive over their grass and off the curb to circumvent the vehicle. You should be aware that Belmont 1 supported a recent petition with our community last week with the intent to request administration reevaluate the traffic flow of pickup and drop-off for our students' safety to minimize congestion on residential streets. I also understand our president, Jeff Riggs, has reached out to you, and he looks forward to your response. Not only do I thank you for your time, but the parents of children who've asked me to reach out to you, I thank them as well. Look forward to hearing from AISD and those at GRE and scheduling time for further discussion. In the meantime, I encourage you to read the traffic impact analysis report, which we paid for, which discusses the surrounding activity around GRE. It can be found on the Belmont District website. Like you, our Belmont One meetings are open. We meet every second Monday of the month, and we encourage you to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, that concludes public forum for this evening. We have no action to take from closed session. So we have recognitions from AEF.
Hello, I'm Catherine Strange. My current title this year is past president, and so you know what that means. I am on my.
Yeah, I can tell you when I was past president, then you came to the school board.
Yeah. The next step is coming up. You have to sign up.
So boldly talk.
I am almost to the finish line. So no, but I'm happy to be here. So we're just going to give you guys a little update on the year. For you, the guys that are here that don't know, this is our mission statement, and it's actually, though our mission statement has stayed the same, our focus is going to be a little different in this school year. So I won't read that to you guys. Our vision and goals is to create perpetual source of funds while maintaining a fiscal responsibility, provide funds for programs and activities to broaden student educational development and enrichment, to promote innovative and creative learning by providing grants and incentives to benefit Argyle ISD. That is one of the fun things we get to do. Giving teachers money is always fun. Provide an avenue for business and community involvement in the educational needs of Argyle ISD. So the organization was founded in February of 2003, and it was, so it was really awesome to celebrate last year for our 20th, 2 years ago with our 20th. My years are running together. And since its inception, we've donated $2,200,000, just a little over. And that has gone to AISD through, for teacher innovation programming, grants, scholarships, STEM funding, and recognition. So there is our board members and our directors, and we do have a few more just to say if you guys know of anybody that you have met, and there are a couple of positions that we could definitely fill. This is our investments. We have, obviously this is also, we can provide the printout, right, the data, like is it a public? I think that because of being a 501c. It must be public. Yeah. Like the more detailed, yes. But our general endowment, so the way, if you don't know that the foundation works is there's buckets, and so in our general foundation we have $692,000, and then we have a Lisa MZ restricted, $28,265, and our Cantrell restricted is $9,951, and then our CoServe, which always gives the scholarship to the student at the end of the year, a senior, is $146,562. And we also have a couple of more endowments that we're in the process of. We're just working out the kinks and what we're going to do with them and all that stuff. So that's exciting news. The programs that we funded and did last year were we partnered with AISD for the first time, which was absolutely amazing because the AISD just has things that we don't have and access to things that we don't have, and so it was really amazing to see like the way it should be for teachers to celebrate and make it a huge deal, because it is a huge deal for them to get Teacher of the Year. And so that was awesome. And there are the teachers for each campus, and I hope that you guys have seen the public, how much we have celebrated. The whole district has celebrated them throughout the year. And let's see. Oh, our further programs, like I was talking about, the scholarships. One thing that I always like to point out with our scholarships is that if anybody ever asks in the public, when the students apply for these scholarships, we get people that are outside of the district to judge these, and we have a rubric. And we specifically want people outside of the district because we don't ever want anybody to question favoritism or, whatever. So it really is. And if they even know anybody that like serves on the board or whatever, we're like, nope, you can't be a judge. So we do try to be very picky with those. And then staff appreciation was fun. Giving gift cards at the convocation is always fun. So those are just a few of the things that we did. These are the development part is the gala. We raised over $130,000, and we were proud to partner with CoServe to provide an additional $2,333 in the teacher grants, and that was just a really fun day to see the teachers so surprised that they, their grant was being, awarded, and then the employee giving program at AISD, the staff participation for a total of nearly $20,000. And so what that is, with the employee giving, is the teachers at the beginning of the year say, I'm going to give $100 for the year, and I get to wear jeans on Fridays, it's different per campus, whatever the campus decides. And so anyway, that's their way of, they are kind of giving back to, the programs, and they get to have a little fun. So that's always a fun incentive. So, in the What's Next, I would like to introduce you to our newest president, Hannah Robinson.
Welcome, Hannah. All right, so what's next for this year for AEF? We're going to continue to work closely with AISD administration to fund teacher bonuses for the 24-25 school year. Our new initiative just kicked off this August, so we're really looking for everybody to help us spread the word. We're trying to, earn as much as we can, get as much money back to these teachers. Important dates we have coming up. We have our first fundraiser, the Cornhole Tournament, on November 10th, so get a team, get a group from your neighborhood. And come out. We're going to have food and drinks, and we'll have the Cowboys game on and stuff. And then our big fundraiser is our gala on April 12th. It's going to be back at the same location as last year in Denton. We haven't announced the theme yet, but it'll be fun. I promise. It's always fun. And so we're really looking for sponsors for that. We're looking for a high attendance. We want to, sell this thing out. Like I said, all this money is going back to the teachers. We're working in subcommittees to further our foundation and district goals. Endowments, we're working on 2 others right now and hoping to find some more this year. And we're working to improve continuity within the board to increase organizational continuity and transitional efficiency. So let's see. If anybody has any questions or comments, let us know. You can email us. You can reach out to Kara, our director, or myself, anybody on the board. We have a new Facebook page, so if you'll go and like that and share it. Oh, yes. Yeah, it's Argyle ISD Education Foundation now, our old page. There was some issues with it. So
they got hacked, and then they couldn't, poor Kara, she spent a lot of time and money trying to get it back, and so we had to start over, which is really not good when you're trying to a lofty goal. So we will share that with you, and then maybe you guys can be like, since people listen to y'all.
Yeah, if anybody can like it, share it, point them towards our website. It's got all of the donation information and events that we have going on. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we would like to take a picture with you.
Yes.
Yes, and present the check for
For this year, it's
Wonderful.
$87,000.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry. The chair apologizes.
I need to see you. I know.
We should start a Facebook handle back there. Yeah. All right, here we go. I'll take several. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
All right, we'll move on to the consent items. Start with donation. Can I listen to band real quick?
I know, it's a good sound.
It's the first movement. All right, I'll move on. All right, September 24 donations. AABC donation number 45, $4,816 for Daktronics shot clocks. ABC donation number 46, $17,100 for Huddle access and software. ABC donation number 47, $599 for MatBoss video stats software for wrestling. AYSA archery, $21,000 for 6th grade center outdoor education. Total September donations, $43,515. All right, does anyone have any questions on any of the consent items? And I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items as presented.
So moved.
Dr. McDade, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Leanne Artho with second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you.
We should be ready for reports.
Efficiency audit.
Yeah, so, all right. Ms. Stewart, you want to introduce our guest?
So this is Dan Pond with our audit firm to present our efficiency audit that was required in order to follow through with the school funding referendum.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hi.
It's good to be here and talk to you. I don't have a slide. Oh. You want to follow with me? Okay, thanks. As I said, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you tonight to go over the efficiency audit. This efficiency audit procedure was required under state law with the fact that you elected to have a tax ratification election in November. Just to give you a little bit of background on efficiency audits, this was enacted by the state legislature in June of 2019, and it was specifically enacted regarding the tax rate election process. The bill itself charged the Legislative Budget Board with coming up with the guidelines for what this efficiency audit would entail. And the Legislative Budget Board did that and released those guidelines in February of 2020. And kind of an interesting note, I guess, if you will, the legislation included a waiver of this requirement for districts that were under a disaster declaration. Well, the guidelines came out in February of 20. We all know what happened in March of 20. COVID hit, and we were immediately under a statewide disaster declaration for 2 years. So there was no requirement for any district in the state during that period of time. And then in February of 22, we had the severe winter storm that created another disaster declaration. So that went through 2024. So we're really just now getting to the point where districts are having to do this if they call for voter-approved tax rate election. So, we're going to go through this. I won't go in great detail. You do have all of the information, and just a few other requirements of the election. And I know you've been through all this with attorneys and all that, but when you adopted the tax rate in August that was above the maximum compressed rate, that triggered the election to be held in November. It also required that you have this audit done, and it has to be posted on your website no later than 30 days before the general election. And so we wanted to get this to you now so that you can look at it and have questions, because that period's coming up in a week or two. So with that said, I'm just going to start on page 3 with our report, and it's a little bit interesting in that under our standards, this is done under the performance audit standards. It's not a financial audit like your annual audit that we do for your annual financial report. So the report tells you that. It also tells you that it's not a financial audit. And it just kind of goes through the procedures that we did perform to come up with this information. The requirements specify that the districts select a group of peer districts, and the management of the district in consultation with us, 8 districts were selected, and we'll look at that in just a minute. But the primary purpose is to compare various measurements of Argyle's performance against these peer districts, and also the state average. So a lot of what we will look at will show both the Argyle measurement and the measurement, the average of those 8 peer districts and the state average. Section 2 on page 5 goes through a little bit of key information about the district and the maintenance and operations tax rate that's been proposed, that's requiring a voter approval. In the second paragraph, we talk about you adopted a rate that is 7.7 cents higher than the maximum compressed rate. In the next paragraph, it talks about the proposed tax rate. It's estimated that when the election passes, that you will increase your revenue about $2.5 million. That's a retained revenue. You'll actually collect more in that in taxes, but you'll have to make recapture payments on part of that. So the net increase in revenue, net of recapture, is estimated to be about $2.5 million. The average taxable value of a single-family home for tax year 2024 is $588,000. The average tax bill as a result of the M&O rate change is a $1,073 increase. Just to go on into the actual data, well, first of all, on the page 6, we talk about some more information about the district. It shows you revenue per student, expenditures per student, talks about your first rating, it talks about your academic accountability rating. You had 4 campuses with an A rating and 1 campus with a B rating, and that's based on the 21-22 accountability ratings. And the reason that number is so old, as you know, they did not release the 23 accountability ratings. And just within the last month or two, they were sued again to not release the 24 accountability ratings. So we're using the most recently available information. Section 3 on page 7, this just kind of goes through our approach and all of the information that was looked at, and this is all pretty much right out of the Legislative Budget Board guidelines for the efficiency audit. And it, as you can see, it continues for several pages, and I'm just not going to go over this because we're going to actually see all this in the schedules that we have attached. But this just shows you the extensive amount of information that was looked at. And that all starts on page 11 is the actual district data on accountability, student staffing, and finances with peer district and state comparisons. Section 1 identifies the peer districts, and you can see the list there. These were selected, and the guidelines kind of tell you what to look at. As you can see, most of these districts are fast growth districts, which obviously Argyle is a fast growth districts. They're also similar in size to Argyle, and many of them are pretty close in proximity. Dripping Springs was added just to have some representation outside of the DFW area, but their demographics and growth and things like that are pretty similar to Argyle. So we think that's a very fair grouping of peer districts. The accountability ratings we just talked about. Argyle has had a rating of A in 2022. The number grade was 97, and the peer district average was 90. So you can see that you compare very favorably there. And then the next page shows again the rankings by campus. You had 4 campuses with an A and 1 campus with a B. Financial ratings, this is your first report that you receive every year. Argyle received an A. The top of page 13 with a number score of 94. And you can see that that compares favorably with the peer districts. And Argyle has received an A for the last 5 years. The peer districts range anywhere from 88, it looks like, to a high of 96. And Argyle's number score was 94, excuse me. Number 4 talks about student characteristics, attendance, and 5-year enrollment. It goes through the various categories of special populations that's summarized at the top of page 14. You can see your total enrollment was 4966, and that's broken down and shows these various subgroups. It shows the peer district average for each of those and the state average. And a lot of the information here explains some of the differences in spending per student and revenue per student. When you have a larger population of special ed and economically disadvantaged, that generates more grant funds. So your revenue from grants is lower than most of these districts for that reason, especially at the statewide average level. Attendance rates are at the bottom of that page. In 21-22, your district attendance rate was 94.7, and you can see that compares favorably with the peer district average of 93.7 and the state average of 92.2. That attendance rate was less than the 2 previous years. It's the first full paragraph on page 15. But that's really because the 2 years before that were both COVID years where your attendance was based on hold harmless numbers from before COVID. So it's not really, everybody knows that your attendance went down during COVID. But in terms of the state statistics, it shows a higher amount because of hold harmless provisions. The bottom of page 15 shows your growth rate. Your average for the last 4 years is 12.9, and then when you add in 2024, it drops that slightly, so that your 5-year average is 12.1. That's considered pretty high. Obviously, you're a fast growth district. Section 5 deals with district revenue, and you can see your total revenue per student is $10,721 compared to a peer district average of $11,146 and a state average of $12,822. And the reason, again, I think why there's such a big difference, these numbers include all funds of the district except debt service funds and capital projects fund. So it includes not just your general fund, but all of your grant funds. And as I said, Argyle doesn't receive near as much in grant funds. If you look at the federal line of that chart, you receive $499 per student in federal funds, whereas the peer district average was $942 and the state average was $2,568. The biggest difference there is the period of time that this looks at. Districts were still receiving ESSER funds, and districts with more economically disadvantaged students and things like that received a larger ESSER fund allocation. So you can see just on the federal line, you receive much less than most other districts. The item 6 includes district expenditures, and you also had expenditures per student less than the peer district average and much less than the state average. Again, that's because of those grant funds, and the spending of those grant funds increased their expenditures per student. Seven talks about payroll expenditures. Your payroll as a percentage of all funds is almost 80%, which is again higher than your peer district average and state average. Your average teacher pay is higher. Average administrator salary is also higher, and your superintendent salary was less during this analysis than your peer districts, but more than your state average. But then the narrative points out that the state average is lower because so many small districts in West Texas and places like that have much lower salaries. Item 8 talks about your fund balance. Argyle has maintained a fairly consistent unassigned fund balance per student over this period of time, and a percentage of operating expenditures. You're right in the 25 to 30% mark, which is generally that's what most financial people would recommend, is at least 3 months operating expenses, which would be 25%, and you're right in that range. The peer district average, the general fund per student is more, and also the unassigned fund balance as a percentage of operating expenses is generally a little bit higher. The next page talks about meeting that 3-month test, and you can see that you've been right at or above that for the last 5 years. And then you've also had assigned fund balance for the last 3 years there at the bottom of the page. Item 9 talks about staffing levels. And I think at the bottom two show you the total students per total staff and students per teaching staff. And you compare very favorably on both of those categories. Teacher turnover rates is in figure 10, item 10, figure 13. You had a very low district turnover rate, almost half of what your peer district average was. So I think that's very positive. And your peer districts range from a high of 32% to a low of 16.9. So you were well below even the lowest of your other peer districts. I think that's pretty exceptional, being that you're this close to the Metroplex with all the competition and so easy for teachers to move without having to travel a lot. Figure number 11 talks about special programs, and it just shows that your total students, and then your program budget for those areas and the amount that you're spending and your staffing for those categories. That's really all of the numbers that they talk about. The last few pages talk about processes, and it's basically several different areas and what the guidelines consider best practices in those areas. The first one on page 24 is the budget process, and you answered yes to all of those best practices. The next one on page 25 is your compensation system. And again, you answered yes to the best practices. You answered no to the fact that the district does not use salary bonuses or merit pay systems at this time. The next one is operational information. And again, you answered yes to each of the best practices within this area. And then finally, on your academic information, again, this is some best practices as to how you evaluate programs and how the process that you go through to add programs and things of that nature. And again, you answered yes to each of the best practices. That's the report. Are there any questions?
Professor. That seemed to cover it all very well. So
It's a lot of information.
it's a lot of information for sure. So I think it
Do like the comparison
Highlight.
district.
highlights a lot of positive things that we're doing as a district and highlights a lot of the funding challenges that we're getting from our legislators. So I appreciate that validation. I don't have any questions. Anyone have any questions? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to give a word of thanks to Liz. She helped gather all of this data. All of this data is publicly available, most of it on TEA's website. And so it's just a matter of mining that data. And Liz did all of it, basically. And that's why some of the numbers are not that recent. You might be a 22 number or a 23 number, because that's all that's publicly available to get the peer district numbers. Obviously, we've got super up-to-date numbers on Argyle, but you don't want to compare your 24 numbers to somebody else's 23 numbers or 22 numbers.
Right.
So when it does appear to be old data, it's because that's what's publicly available for all of those districts.
All right.
Well, thank you for having us.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Cohen.
Hello. So tonight, the first presentation I've got for you will be our construction updates. Excuse me. So as we all know, we have moved in and are operating our newest elementary school, Jane Russman. We are still continuing to complete some minor items of work. Got punch list items. We were down under 10 items last week when we met. We're dealing with warranty issues as they arise, which is nearly daily as you get everybody in there and everything starts getting used. You start to discover things that may have never been used during construction, just installed, and the assumption was the light switch worked, but no one ever flipped it or no one ever plugged something in that outlet. And then we're also working on the project financial wrap up with the contractor, so we're catching up on some pricing on some outstanding items that we've requested as a district, again, as they moved in and realized there are certain things that should have been done a little bit differently, a different type of lock, for instance, a keypad lock on a storage door instead of a key lock. So we're working through those things, and so that'll still take, probably a couple of months before we get all that submitted, approved, wrapped up, and come to you with the amount of money that we are bringing back to you out of that GMP. On the Argyle Middle School, we have been issued a grading permit by the town. This was 2 to 3 weeks ago now that was issued. They are currently working out there on site, so I just went by, snapped a picture with some equipment. It's already different just 3 days later from when that photo was taken. Our engineering plans have been submitted, so it's in for the third review with the town now. I'm kind of expecting a response probably this week on that. Most likely with some comments, hopefully very minor at this point. Our final plat has been submitted. We got comments back late last week on that, fairly minor comments, so we'll get those addressed and continue that process with the town. And then they have allowed us to submit our building plans for the building permit, so that is in its first review now, and we'll probably still take another couple of weeks before we would expect to see any comments come back on that. We do have probably several months worth of grading work to do, building pad preparation, and then with our engineering package, which we think will be approved fairly soon, then they can start on all the underground utility work. So we've got quite a bit of work before we get to a point where we're needing the building permit to have inspections on certain portions. With our new stadium and our indoor activity center here on campus, we have been issued all permits now by the town of Flower Mound, both our development for site and 5 building permits. Each separate building has its own. So they've all been issued. Work has started. They've already had some of their initial inspections that Flower Mound requires before you can actually start with any of the grading or utility installation. Some of those things include the trailer setup, your silt fence, your tree protection. There's a development sign that we have to get posted. So they're working through all of those before they can actually start what we call real work. But again, I snapped just a couple of photos so you can see the job trailer on the left has been installed. They're working on the porch and the ramp that we've got to do for Flower Mound and the road. And on the right, they started doing some saw cutting where we've got to demo some curb where our new drive will go through into the parking lot for the home side. That is all for that report. Any questions on any of the current projects, active projects?
How many iterations typically on permits and things do you go through with the town?
As far as reviews?
Yes, with the town in general.
With the town in general, I would say 3 is not unusual, probably. Okay. Sometimes it's just the timing of those, when they allow you to submit. A lot of times they don't want it until you've gotten to a certain point. So both Flower Mound and Argyle have let us submit those earlier than they typically would. Argyle took a little more convincing than Flower Mound did. But each review, the comments get less and less. They become more minor, and eventually it gets to a point where it gets approved, even though there are still comments. They just finally, you don't have to go submit again. So I think we're at that point usually by the time we've gone through 3.
Okay, thank you.
So also tonight I've got just an update on the bond program, not necessarily what you'd consider construction projects. So here I just put some of our main projects of the 22 bond on here for you. Jane Russman, the stadium and indoor activity in the middle school, the ones we just talked about. So we have completed Jane Russman Elementary. We have completed Hilltop Playground addition, which was part of the 22 bond, and the orchestra shell at the high school was also part of that. Those have all been completed. Projects in progress include the new middle school, the new stadium, the new indoor activity center, and then we've started working on our furniture refresh that was part of that bond for Hilltop and Argyle Middle School. So we've gone through an iteration of that, met with the vendor, had some comments, and so we're scheduled to meet again next week to review that and involve some of the campus teams to make sure we're getting all of the furniture needs met as we refresh those campuses. So just in general overview, 22 bond, the total authorization $267.885 million. We sold those bonds in 3 issues, August 22, May 23, and then the latest just this month. And to date, I believe this was through August, the interest earned to date was $10.886 million, and that is net number of arbitrage. Yes, making sure I had that right. Mm-hmm. So that is, I guess what you call a retained interest that we have at this time off those, and that's all 3 propositions combined. I didn't divide this out into prop A, B, and C, so this is an overall picture. Are there any questions on any of that?
No, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your report?
Is it my turn?
It is your
What's
turn.
next? My turn? Okay, it's my
your
turn.
turn.
All right, then I think you're after. You're in a minute. You're not you yet. No, it's my turn. Okay, superintendent's report. So we are officially, as of today, at 6,100 students. We hit 6,100 with some new enrollees today. Congratulations also, I'm sure most of y'all saw this, but we had a National Merit semifinalist, Drew Macarith, that was announced last week. So we're super proud of Drew and looking forward to continuing to grow our National Merit program with our younger students as they come up. But on that same note, the high school also had 37 students named in the National Recognition Program through College Board, which is a great number. That's based on PSAT and AP scores. Those 37 students earned the national recognition in a combination of categories, and those included rural, Hispanic, African American, and first generation. So
Very proud of our 37 students that earned national recognition. And then just a few things as the year has gotten started. We are off and running with our athletics programs. Volleyball is ranked number 4 in the state. So they are holding that top 5 spot. We're very proud of them. They are 1-0 in district. Team tennis is ranked 6th right now in state. Football started district. If you aren't aware, we are in a 9-team district. So we've already started district with football, which seems early, with a great road win in the last just seconds of the game against Mansfield Timberview Friday night. And currently we're ranked number 5 in Dave Campbell's poll. And then middle school 8th grade volleyball won the Bronco Bash recently, and both the football A teams are both 2-0. So off to a good start athletically in our athletic department. And then from a fine arts perspective, as you can hear this evening out here, and we hear every morning when we come to the office, which is awesome. Band is preparing for competition season getting started. This month, the Drumline will have a contest. They will also have a marching showcase. And then they get going in October with Bands of America. Regional in Bedford, they'll have 2 UIL contests and then a 3rd state, because we're going to make it to state. So the state marching contest in November. So there's a lot of things coming up for band. And then our musicals are coming. So the high school will be in November and the middle school will be in November as well. So be watching for the theater presentations coming out. And then a big event at Jane Russman. I know we've talked a lot about that this evening, but our grand opening and ceremony, ribbon cutting, and all of the things, dedication, will be next Wednesday, the 25th at 5:30. So we invite our community out to that celebration where we get to honor Miss Russman and opening of that campus officially. From a community perspective, we have several meetings coming up on our calendars for the school funding referendum, which is the BATRE. Right now, we have about 25 to 30 meetings set up. Mr. Herron and his team will be getting those advertised between staff meetings and community meetings and coffee meetings and all the things. So if you're looking for us in the next 4 weeks or so, we will be out in the community doing our referendum meetings. But we're looking forward to that and engaging with our community. We also closed the committee interest form last Friday. It closed at 4 o'clock on Friday. That was the deadline. Had just over 90 community members interested, and so as we are working through openings on different district level committees and even some campus level committees, people that fit in those criteria will be contacted with an invitation, and so be looking for those from district level leaders. And once those committees are formed, we'll post those on the website, but all of them are kind of coming up in the next few weeks to a couple months, so we'll be getting ready to form some of those. Also, just some website updates that I think are important for our community. We have public comment transcriptions that are posted on our online. So each month when we have public comment, or each meeting we have public comment, we post that on the school board website. And then we will also add a district response if one is needed. And then we also have launched our public information request archive and responsive documents. They're now posted on our website. So anyone that's interested to know what has been coming in to the district in terms of public information requests and responsive documents that aren't related to student records, you can see those posted. And then we're working on a webpage blueprint for our transition to 2 middle schools and 2 high schools that will align with our high school zoning process that starts in November. And then Eagle Ambassadors. So last year we had a record inaugural class, and we had several that were on the waiting list for that. So we've sent the invitations out to those that were on the waiting list in the original group last year. As their commitments come in, we'll determine whether or not how many additional seats we have and what we can open up to others that are interested, but getting ready to launch our second Eagle Ambassadors. And then finally, I just want to close with our Texas School Coalition, our legislative planning. We are in the throes of that right now internally as a district. We will have Capitol Day, February 26th, where Argyle ISD will go to the Capitol during the 89th legislative session. You're going to see our legislative priorities here in just a moment as an agenda item. We had the opportunity last Thursday to meet with House District 65 Republican nominee Mitch Little. So I want to just publicly thank him for having the opportunity for us as a district to sit down. We had 2 trustees attend with us, and him just really asking us how the public school funding crisis is impacting Argyle ISD. And we had a really good conversation, candid conversation with him. And I do appreciate that. He even followed up with a couple of questions today regarding formula transition grant and understanding that. So appreciated that from him. And then we are very, very close to relaunching our Just Ask Argyle website. It is time for us to really get that going with our community and our staff. We're putting some new content out there. And so if it's okay with the board, I'm going to take just about 5-6 minutes, I think, to show a video that we're going to launch this week legislatively. And Mr. Herron and his team have been working on this, so we're debuting it tonight, and we'll get it pushed out and then get it on our website. So if you'll take just a minute to watch this, and you'll kind of see where we're headed.
Hello, Argyle ISD community. We spent several months last year educating our community and urging you to take part in legislative advocacy at the state level. Despite the Texas legislature meeting for 5 sessions in 2023, our leaders have failed to agree on legislation that would fully fund Texas public schools. We need action, and we need it now.
Please join us in asking our legislators to prioritize public education funding. Did you know that according to Ed Week 2021 and Raise Your Hand Texas, that Texas ranks 42nd in the country in per student state public education funding? That is $4,000 per student behind the national average. Did you know the state funding formula has not changed since 2019, despite record inflation since that time? In the face of the sharp rise in costs of everything from fuel to insurance to utilities, state funding has lagged behind, leaving schools to bear the brunt of the shortfall. Did you know our legislature had a record surplus during the 88th regular session and met again for 4 additional special sessions, but did not pass an increase in public K-12 funding in Texas? Despite the many times Argyle ISD and our community spent reaching out to our legislators to let them know how desperate the need is. Did you know the state is withholding $4 billion in already approved funding for public school children in Texas? Without an increase in state funding, school districts, including Argyle ISD, will have to consider additional budget reductions. Specifically, Argyle ISD is one of the few districts in the state that has received the Formula Transition Grant since 2019 and faces a significant funding cliff beginning this school year. Argyle ISD is subject to losing approximately $250,000 in local property tax revenue via the Robin Hood formula of recapture to be paid back to the state. And Argyle ISD, like most school districts in Texas, is struggling to provide meaningful raises to our teachers. In June, our Board of Trustees approved a one-time retention stipend for all employees, which is a very different plan than years past, when the district was able to give on average 3% raises each year. Speaking of our amazing teachers, a February 2023 Governor Teacher Texas Vacancy Task Force report emphasized the importance of taking care of our teachers here in Texas, calling classroom teachers, and I quote, the most important factor in a child's academic success. This report found that salary increases are not keeping up with high inflation rates and suggested in the report a significant increase in overall teacher salaries by increasing the basic allotment. On top of all of this, Argyle ISD's budget is impacted by underfunded mandates from the state. Our district is projected to spend 154% more than the special education state allotment in order to meet the needs of our special ed program requirements. To meet the new safety requirements, AISD is projected to spend 367% more than the state allotment because safety and security have been and will continue to be a priority in AISD. The state must provide funding for the sustainability of the programs it mandates. So where does that leave us right now? In late July, state leadership issued instructions to state agencies to kick off the first step in the upcoming appropriations process for the 89th legislative session. Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick issued a joint letter outlining their instructions and priorities. Speaker Dave Phelan issued a similar but different letter individually. The primary difference between the two letters was that Abbott and Patrick gave the instructions, and I quote, legislative appropriations requests should take into consideration that priorities for the next Appropriations Act will include property tax relief,
additional funding to support construction and modernization of dispatchable electric generating facilities, operational funding for the mental health facilities authorized by the 88th legislature, and funding for educational savings accounts and securing the border. Phelan's letter omitted some of the specifics in the paragraph above and instead stated, quote, "While I am confident the next budget will prioritize critical items such as additional property tax relief and border security, it will ultimately be up to all members of the legislature to determine the spending priorities next season. This issuance of instructions is but the first step in a long process toward developing and adopting the 2026-27 state budget. Do you notice what I notice? Appropriately funding public education for Texas children was not listed, and we are at a gridlock. According to a recent analysis of the Legislative Budget Board by Moat Casey, inflation-adjusted state and local revenue funding per ADA is currently projected to drop nearly $1,460 per student compared to what schools received in fiscal year 2020, the first year of House Bill 3. In August, legislative committees began hearings in Austin to prepare for the 89th Texas State Legislative Session that will commence in January. The House Public Education Committee and Senate Finance Committee are already on the calendar to meet regarding education savings accounts, also known as vouchers, and property tax relief, but not public school funding. Regardless of what happens with the voucher debate next legislative session, public education leaders and community members must continue to show state lawmakers the impact their inaction is having on school budgets. Ask our representatives to prioritize legislation that gets funds to public schools where they are desperately needed. Ours begins now. The first day legislators and legislators-elect may file bills for the 89th legislature is November 11th, and the 89th legislative session convenes in Austin on January 14th, 2025. Visit takeactionargyle.com and take just a moment to submit a pre-written letter or make a phone call. You could even write your own, which will be automatically delivered to our state representatives, asking them to support legislation that could increase funding for Texas public schools. Okay, so we will be launching that and continuing our work and marching forward. So, thanks. No. I did not go to school to be on TV, so we did the best we could.
That was awesome.
But thank you to Mr. Heron and his team for getting that put together. So there was a lot of B-roll and a lot of pictures, and we wanted it to be our kids and branded our way, and so that's important to us in this district.
It was weird watching you up there and no
I
one
know,
was
no one's
sitting
sitting
here
right
and
here.
your lips were not moving.
Exactly, so, okay, thank you.
Ready for the budget report?
All right.
Well done.
Sam, what is this? Budget report?
So you're gonna present the budget book, right? The one that you've been working on? Okay.
So just before we start with that, I'll give a shout out.
Yeah.
I know most of you up here have met Christine Arrington. A lot of people in the district haven't, but she's the reason that we have this put together today. She's done this behind the scenes and has put quite a bit of work into this. And so anything that comes out of our department that looks nice and pretty and has graphics, she's going to be the one that puts that together for us. So I do want to give her some credit on that. Without that, you might have a few schedules from me and not near the charts and graphs and everything. We have them during our workshop presentations, but this is just kind of a culmination of everything together. So we won't go into the detail that we did on the budget workshops or on the budget presentation last month, because I think you've heard most of that over and over throughout this whole process. Looks like we might be back and going.
There we are. Did the video crash it? Was that my fault? Sorry. Nobody wanted to blame me for crashing the video.
Awesome. All right.
So again, this is more informational, and this has been something that's been on our goal list in our department for a while. We'll continue this each year, so once the budget is adopted, we'll have this out there on the website every year from here on, as long as we can do that. So this will just be a quick overview. Some of the things that you're going to see in here are going to talk, you'll read a number, and you'll say, wait a second, we know our numbers are different already, and I'm going to give you an example of enrollment. This is in the perspective of what we were planning and how we developed the budget. So when we list the enrollment in here as that we were looking at a little over 5,800 students, that's what we were planning on the budget. We know at this point in time that we've exceeded that, but again, this is in a planning document of how we were putting things together. So you'll find some basic information. You're going to see some strategic initiatives, several of the programs that were put in place this year. You've got all the organization, the mission, all of the school board members, and information about each member. And then some of these pages are, because they won't fit great one way, they are horizontal and vertical, and so the intent is if you're pulling this up online, you can rotate the screen on there for yourself. So some financial data goes over our recognition, just the first report, and then the transparency stars that we've gone through as a district. This is some historical data that's based on our budget. Again, when you're pulling this up, you can rotate the screen on these. These are our audited financial data that's in here. All of this information, again, is found out in other sites on our website. This is just kind of pulled together. Some recapture historical. Then each campus in here will have a little bit of information. And so for our first go-round on this, we put in what we felt like was pertinent to planning the budget. You've got your enrollment forecast for each campus, and you've got your actual attendance historical data for each campus that we use.
So you've got a 5-year...
You've got a 5-year trend. Okay. I would like to note on all of the attendance data, you'll see it was 2 of the years were based on COVID data, and so it's not a great 5-year trend.
Those were hold harmless, right?
They were hold harmless, but you'll see quite a bit of variance in those. So when we're looking at when we look at attendance, you have pre-COVID, you have COVID, and you have post-COVID, and all of those numbers are a little bit different. So it's a little bit. We have a shorter amount of years that we're looking at post-COVID to kind of come up with those numbers. The 6th grade center, one thing to point out on here, historical data. This campus, actually, since it's the same campus number, you're pulling in some data that was on the intermediate school there before, so you do have a little bit of historical data, even though 6th grade center's only been in existence for...
and this enrollment data is based on last year's demographic report, of which we'll get a new one after snapshot this year, right?
That is correct. So all of this, again, is the planning data that we used in building the budget. Most of the campuses you'll see, they have some form of mission or vision statement, and I believe that's out on their websites as well. And then on Jane Russman, since it's new, of course, we don't have any attendance data on that. Mm-hmm. Well, as the years build in, we'll build that data in. You've got some enrollment history based on campus and prior years. And I think in here we tried to note the 6th grade center, what information was used there for 6th grade center. And then the tax base is pretty important in planning our budget. And so you kind of, questions that we get throughout the year are, how much is residential, how much is commercial, how much is everything else. Property tax exemptions. And again, some of this data is most recent, and some of it is a little bit more historical. This was from the 23-24 tax exempt by type. We've got just a reminder that we had our 2 buckets of data. We've got our M&O and our INS. Historical property tax rates are on here. You've got property valuations, and again, these are all found in our budget workshops. It's just kind of pulling all this data together. You do have some tax rates of overlapping entities on here. Some information about our VADR, and anything that has that URL at the top, when this is a document, you'll actually have a live link to that information. And then we've got our bond information. We've got the 2024 bond information, what was included, the results of that, and then the 2022 bonds, since we still have those funds out there, same thing, what was included and the results of that election. Our total outstanding debt, and then our enrollment growth, just some trend data there. And then our employee count, got some historical data there on our employee count. That was pulled from our PEMS data. Our new home closings, that's included in our demographer's report. And then some total employers and taxpayers. So I believe the county helped us with who was in Argyle AISD and nearby I believe they included Marty B's in there, which is technically right outside of our district, so it is Argyle ISD nearby. And then the principal taxpayers, it's our top 10. That's published by the county every year, or the appraisal district, sorry. And then building our budget this year just kind of goes over our calendar. Some of this information was included again. What we did a little differently this year, the workshops we had, the budget deficit that we worked through, the compensation plan that was ultimately approved by the board. And then we have, this was the data that was included in our May workshop. We just expanded it a little bit to give a little more detail in there. And then we also brought in.
So will you go back a second?
Yes.
So you've got the amended budget from last year, our current budget adopted, and then you've got the next two. Okay, so you've got that 3-year outlook from May. Okay,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
see.
So the other ones that we bring in are our student nutrition fund and our interest and sinking fund. Those we have the outlook on that. I did not have that in a chart graph in time to put that in here, but we'll be including that in future ones as well. And then this was just the budget summary that you see every year. This is the one that was adopted in August because the budget is actually adopted from this one-page summary by fund and function as set out by the guidelines by TEA in the state. So that's the end of it. Again, it's just some data that's pulled together. We will, again, continue to build this and put it out there each year, and we'll expand on it each year a little bit. But that's what we have for this year. So do y'all have questions?
That's a great.
Appreciate
Do
the
you have any questions? All in one place. Very nice.
Sorry.
All right.
Just appreciate the efforts.
Thank you.
Well,
getting it
again,
out there.
can't thank Christine Arrington enough for that. She put this together for us and helped get everything into one place and in one document. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
And now it's your turn, Dr. Jordan. Sorry, we made you
You're
wait.
so ready.
Sadly, I do not have Christine Arrington skills, but I've got good stuff because I've got student achievement data, so that's always fun to share. It's why we're here. So I'm going to share with you some STAR and EOC scores from last school year, and our auditor gave me a great segue because he talked about some of these things here. We do not have accountability ratings for the second year in a row. They are actually before the court today and tomorrow. They've set aside 2 days, but from what I'm hearing, they don't expect a final answer. So we'll see. We will be visiting these scores again, either after we get ratings or when we get our taper. So the A-to-F system was recently updated 2 years ago, so district scores could go up, but ratings could still go down. Because we don't know our ratings, we don't have that final answer. They were delayed again this year due to a lawsuit that was questioning the validity of the automated scoring system. Basically, they were saying that they didn't have a third-party entity review that. So some information before we dig into our report. Statewide, STAR and EOC scores have remained pretty consistent. Reading seems to have trended upward more quickly than our math scores. They've been slower to recover. Those same statistics are what we're seeing in our district, or trends are similar to what we're seeing in our district as well. As I start going through the numbers, you'll see a comparison group. The comparison group is a list of districts that we have chosen because we consider them other high-performing districts, and that's who we want to compare ourselves to. So you'll see there that those districts are Lovejoy, Eanes, Aledo, Melissa, Carroll, Lake Travis, Dripping Springs, and Flower Mound High School, but not Louisville ISD as a whole. Our goal as a district is to be in the top 50% when it comes to meets and masters on STAR and EOC. All the information in this report is coming from TX Research Portal, is public information. The numbers that are going to show up in green are going to be increases of at least 3%. Blue means no significant change, maybe went up or down 1 or 2 percentage point. Red, a decrease of 3%. Something I want to remind you of we have some greatness to celebrate, and we have areas of growth. But please know that for every area of growth, we have a principal with a great plan. We dug into our root cause analysis this summer. We revisit those things at our principal PLCs, and there's a good plan for everything. Starting off with just some trend data from TEA, you'll just see from 2019 to 2024, kind of what happened with those scores. They go down after COVID, they make a recovery, and then start redesign, and then fairly consistent since then. So here's our scores, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading scores. The state, the region, there's our comparison group with the meets and masters, and then our 3 elementary schools. So in some areas, we're beating the comparison group. Some, we have some work to do, but we're close. We're close everywhere when it comes to looking at the average, and we have a lot to be proud of there. Like I said, any areas of concern, there's a plan.
Dr. Jordan, will you just, for the general public, remind that approaches is the basic passing standard for the state, and so we look beyond that we're
absolutely
looking at meets and
our
masters.
expectations are very high. We expect our students to pass, which would be approaches, and you'll see that those are all very high. But meets and masters, we want to push our students to excel, and we really focus on our percentage of masters. Star reading, grades 6th through 8th, you'll see similar trends there, where we're close to that top 50th in every category for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And we usually double the state's percentage when it comes to masters. Bless you. Okay, going into math, as I mentioned earlier, didn't quite see the recovery in math here, and we see those same trends in our data. So one area of concern that you will see right away is our 3rd grade math. And so once again, just keeping in mind that is an area for our whole district that we are very focused on. As a district, our principals have good plans in place, and we are revisiting data frequently. Moving on to the 6th through 8th, I want to point out for 6th grade that the reason for the lower score is Region 11 made a recommendation that our students, remember we have 3 levels of math, on grade level, compacted, and advanced. They made a recommendation that our 6th graders who were in compacted take this 7th grade star instead of the 6th grade star, and it's because the amount of TEKS that they're covering each year. So you'll see that our 7th grade star scores are well above the comparison group and the state and region, where our 6th grade scores are a little bit lower because those are our only on grade level. So wherever you test them, you're going to have a high and a low somewhere. It's just a little bit different this year than it was in past years because of the recommendation from Region 11, which made sense. It made sense. Okay, science, our 5th and 8th graders take science. I think overall, we knocked this one out of the park. You'll see that the state and region have 11% masters, and overall, our 5th graders did very well. More than doubled masters also compared to the state with middle school. Social studies, these are our 8th grade students. Social studies is another area of strength for us. Our students did very well. English 1, you'll see here, not a lot of change over the years. And then English 2. Now this one is kind of perplexing me because you'll see there's a very low percentage of masters. So when you look at our scores, we almost doubled, once again, masters from our high school English 2, but we're really determined to crack the code here for this English 2 test. So we are on top of it because it's challenged us now because we know that our students are very, very capable. There's a big difference between English 1 and English 2. So moving into Algebra 1, very consistent the last 2 years. And here are our scores here for Algebra 1.
And that includes the 8th graders taking Algebra 1.
Correct. It is middle school and high school. U.S. History, another strong area along with that 8th grade social studies test, and biology. Both areas of strength for us. So you'll see our scores here. Very competitive. with the comparison districts. And then last one is our CCMR. So we grew our score to 78, which I'm super happy because that's the bottom line for a B. So in this particular area, a 78 becomes a B. So very happy that we hit 78. Our goal is 88, which is an A. It's going to take us a little bit to get there, but we're trending in the right direction, and I'm happy to be a B. That's all the information I have for you tonight. You'll be hearing from me again soon with SAT, ACT, AP, and then coming back to revisit this once we find out what's happening with ratings and taper. What questions do you have for me?
Is that 78 under the new scoring rules? Okay.
Yes.
So it probably could have been an A or
Oh,
a
it would
high
have been
B.
before they changed it.
Before they
Oh,
changed
yeah.
it.
It was
Okay.
the cutoff for an A was a 60, and then they moved it up to an 88. And so huge jump there. We'd always been an A in that particular category until they moved it.
Okay.
Any other
So,
questions? Yes.
Lots of things, like you said, to be positive about. Obviously, you showed us some areas that need work as well. But
Yep.
so is the goal? You mentioned a couple times that hey, we're in our meets and masters, we're double the state or double the region. Is that the goal, or is the goal our comparison districts?
No, that's why I included the comparison group, because that's always going to be our goal. I mean, if I had to tell you right now what's my personal goal, it would be 50% masters across the board. That's where I would love for us to be. And it's going to take some time. We have some district initiatives of what we're focusing on as a district, so our students can really grow in their critical thinking skills, because I think, and then our teachers with their questioning to grow the students' critical thinking skills. So as a district, we had training. When school first started, we have trend data happening where we can see where we're being really successful with that, where we need more professional development, and then working with our principals, going over their school data, their teachers' data, so that we can dig in at that more granular level.
And to elaborate on that, the 50% for masters, but also be in the top 50% of our comparison group, which are the 9 that she mentioned at the beginning.
Okay.
At that level, at meets and masters for those. Yes.
Good goals.
And the principals are using those same goals, yep, as we're working through. Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, legislative priorities. So we talked a lot about that just a little bit ago. Ms. Stewart and I had the opportunity to be with the Texas School Coalition last week. We sat at the table with Highland Park, Lovejoy, Aledo, and Argyle. That was a great opportunity, as we are all high performing districts, and so we all have a lot of the same interests in terms of what we need legislatively. So you'll see here, this is for the board to consider. This is draft, so it would come back to you in October for adoption, pending any feedback you have. But basically, this is just us focusing on essentially investing in the future of Texas, our workforce, our economy, and that's putting the money into where our kids are in the classrooms and to our teachers. So we're looking at a basic allotment increase. Mr. Heron, if you'll go right back up to priority 1 real quick, I'm sorry. One of the things that you don't often see on legislative priorities from districts is the why is important. So we've spent some time going through and saying, we're asking for this, but here's why it's important to us. Because a lot of times you'll see priorities listed, but there's no meat to it to understand the why behind it. I think that's important for our legislatures, because we often get lumped in as public ed with everybody, but our stories are very different. And so you've got here just understanding what inflation's done since 2019. You have fuel has increased 44% for us. Utilities have increased 51% for us. Insurance has increased 45% for us. Meanwhile, navigating, employees trying to navigating living expenses without adequate increases. Just adding $1,200 to the basic allotment would generate us about $9 million. Now that's a lofty goal with the legislature because they have caps on their spending, but $1,200 is essentially the 20% we haven't received in inflationary, and we understand businesses are also facing inflation, but that just that allows us to quantify that a little bit, and with our formula transition grant expiration. So that's really just something we wanted to say there. We had, if you keep going down, we have a little bit in here about just asking the governor to implement the recommendations from his task force. He put together a task force for teacher vacancy. Let's implement the recommendations that came out of that study. 81% of our operating budget's personnel, so every 1% of staff raise is about $400,000 to our budget. Also, just having them conduct a state level study to identify the true cost of educating all students. We talked a little bit ago in the video, it talked about 100, and our percentages here are updated because we started that video this summer, that with this year's budget, we're 151% more than our state special ed allotment, and we're 483% more than our safety allotment. So with our new budget, those are our percentages. The percentages that were in the video were from last year's budget. Then also just looking at our special education students. You know, we get allotments for special education students, but it's not based on their needs, individual needs. And we have some students that have some significant needs, and we need to be able to have the state look at that for identification, critical positions to serve our students, and then just adequately staffing those students, and then obviously all the testing and diagnostics that go with them. And then just looking at the priority of eliminating recapture on voter-approved Tier 2 copper pennies. We're going to be talking about that in our community meetings over the next 4 to 6 weeks as we approach Election Day. I mean, we're in a position where the state takes recapture on copper pennies, and so we've got to educate our community on that and understand what that means, but also let us keep what we generate, you know, for our district at the local level. So those are the priorities that our district team has brought to you as a draft, and we'd like you to consider those over the next few weeks as we come back in October, and we can make any adjustments that you would like to or have any discussions.
Looks good.
All right, thank you. I think last item is Mr. Ledford. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Last item, sir.
Yep.
Bring us home.
You're driving the bus here.
You are.
I have driven a bus from this year already, so we did try to do a lot better job this year to start the year with making sure that we didn't have as many issues with our transportation department as we did the previous year. And I think we did a good job of that, but it was due to having 3 extra drivers driving buses, following to certain places that we anticipated to have full buses. And when we got there, of course, they were full. We were able to get them to school, get them home, and we see a need for more buses. So we're bringing to you that we need 1 sped bus and two regular buses. That's what we're asking for. Hopefully that serves the need at this time. I anticipate we may need some more next year, but I think we have time to assess that going forward. One thing that we have found is the international buses, we can get them in about 3 months. The Thomas buses are about 7 to 9 months for the regular ones, but the special ed ones, it's the last one we got took 14 months. It's just too long. We can't wait that long. So it's nice to be able to get buses sooner than what we were able to before. So we think we can assess that and make that call by maybe April and be able to have those buses before the next year. And if we don't, we'll be able to use the trip buses because there's not as many needed for the fall as there is the spring. So we will be able to use that and get us by. You guys have any questions?
Liz, where does this put us? I know we have money in the 2022 bond for buses. I think we've already bought some using those funds. Where does this, what were we anticipating for the 4.5 million? How many buses were you anticipating?
Just under 4.5 million. In there, we have just over 3 million remaining prior to this purchase. And I believe that we have anticipated that taking us out at least 5 years, and that we'll have to go back and double check those numbers on the years. But
I think it gets us to the split.
yes, the rate of the increase in the cost per bus is higher than what we had anticipated. But we are still meeting.
Can you add that
Prices
to your
have gone up
list?
quite a bit.
How much? So we do, there is a little bit of difference here too, because Thomas, which everybody wanted, but they take so long to get, so they've gone up $3,000 in the past 3 years. But Longhorn or International, which are able to provide us those buses faster, were a lot cheaper than Thomas. Now they're just a little bit more, but they've gone up $17,000 in those 3 years. So
you're paying for getting them.
So if we have the money and we can project our growth,
Right.
why can't we project these bus purchases farther out to take advantage of the savings?
We can bring a recommendation to you about what we feel like we would need in the next few years.
Well, I mean, if it's taking anywhere, I saw 8 to 12, I think that was on special ed, but the others, now granted, those numbers forecast for International through Longhorn, are they in general?
no, they're just for Thomas buses are the ones
just
that
for
take so
Thomas.
long. We're able to get Internationals pretty quick, within 3 months.
Right.
Either
So
one.
I guess there was a sheet that was up here, some numbers, can you scroll down? So these estimated lead times, oh, I'm sorry, I see it there now, I see the brands.
3 months for,
So let's say 10 months out for Thomas, but we save money, right? So it just seems like we would be,
we're only saving in special ed though, we're not saving in the regular 77 passenger bus. Actually, Thomas is a little bit more than what International is in the.
why are we not forecasting this out anyway? It's gonna be more, right? I assume too, if they have price increases after you place your order, you're locked into that price.
Yeah, but we make sure, we've had to go back and do that and tell them that we know that this month, this process takes 2 months. We want a price given to us that you're gonna honor in those 2 months. So when when the second board meeting happens, we know that we can go that day after and they're gonna honor that price that they gave us. Now, it wasn't that way all the time until we've made sure that that's what we asked for.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good. I think 2 months is easy for them to do. I'm wanting to lock in that price for 2 months for 10 months later. If they have an order in hand.
Right, what you're asking us to do is go ahead and project out what we would need for next year.
And see if we can lock in a price now.
I think we probably have to put in place the order,
But if it takes us 10 months to get it, and that's when we project we need
We'll
it.
go back and work on the numbers needed for the next 2 years and we'll bring that back.
And I'm not saying that this needs to change where we are now. I'm just saying.
But it's pretty specific on the bond what the money can be used for.
Yes,
So
why not?
buying it in today's dollars.
we can do that.
And I'm sure if we couldn't take delivery of one, they will happily take it off at a premium and turn around and flip it to somebody else.
Yes, I mean,
That's what
if
they
we
want us to
ordered,
do.
we plan on taking.
They'd be happy.
Yeah.
If we were to order, we would plan on taking delivery of it. But we'll go back and work on, in addition to these, what we would need over the next couple of years and look at what the cost would be to go to place the order now.
Okay.
We'll
Thank you.
have that for you at the
And I
next meeting.
assume there's no scrap programs going on right now, like the good old
So
days.
we're constantly, Liz and I both, and then I know Albert as well, we're constantly looking for the next grant or
Yeah.
the next way to achieve, some help.
Yeah.
Electric buses, at this point, we haven't seen enough money back to us to make that worth our while, but we're still looking all the time.
Is the bond provision is just for buses, not fleet vehicles, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure. Or lawnmowers.
Or
I would think that
lawnmowers.
would
That would be nice, it sure would be.
It's transportation.
There's some leeway in the wording of the actual ballot, but what we priced out were actually estimated were
Right.
buses.
Okay, all right, thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Ledford?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the time is 7:44 p.m. Band will be outside till 9:30. Go enjoy it. Y'all have a good evening.